Welcome to LIMRA Unplugged. Today I'm here with Kim Landry, Assistant Research Director for Worksite Benefits, and we're talking about the perceptions and realities of worksite benefit plans. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to things like financial issues. We know that a lot of employees, in fact, are not knowledgeable about their employee benefits. In fact, fewer than half know that most insurance benefits are portable after they leave the plan. Kim, what do you see as the biggest employee misperceptions?
Thanks, Alison. So we recently quizzed employees on their understanding of their benefits, and frankly, the results were terrible. For disability insurance, we found that only about 2/3 of employees could identify the basics of what disability insurance is. The fact that it's insurance that replaces part of your lost income if you can't work because you're disabled. Just under 2/3 of employees could actually get that question right. And this is in a context where we gave them a multiple choice question and gave them a couple descriptions to choose from. Similarly, only 43% of employees understand that short-term disability insurance usually includes coverage for leave after routine childbirth, even though this is a really popular and widely used benefit of the coverage. For a product like critical illness insurance that's less widely understood and less commonly offered, the knowledge was even worse. So looking only at employees that are offered critical illness insurance at the workplace, so they have received some kind of information about this already and had the opportunity to enroll. Among those employees, only about 1 in 4 can identify the basics of what kind of coverage this is. The fact that it is a policy that pays you a lump sum upon the diagnosis of a specified illness, and the money can be used for anything. Most employees really don't recognize that they can use that money however they want to, and they think that they have to use it for medical expenses or to fill in a medical plan deductible or something like that. If you drill down even further and look specifically at those employees that are actually enrolled in critical illness insurance, only 8% can identify the conditions that would be most likely to be covered by that policy and what wouldn't be covered.
And I wonder if not knowing actually affects the enrollment rates, which we know range from about 36% to 68%. I would assume that if people are more knowledgeable, they'd be more likely to understand the value of the benefits and then enroll. So we just talked about some common misperceptions. What about mistakes? What mistakes do you see employees making with their benefits?
A lot of them. So first of all, across the board, employees tend to underestimate the risk of needing any of these products. So whether that's the risk of becoming disabled, of a premature death, dying within the working years, the risk of being diagnosed with a serious illness, they underestimate all of those risks, which contributes to the sense that these products aren't necessary or aren't a high priority. They also don't tend to know how much coverage they should have. For life insurance, for example, the typical rule of thumb within the industry is we want people to have about 7 to 10 times their annual salary in coverage. Employers are most likely to say that the target amount is more like 2 to 3 times their annual salary, so much lower than the amount of coverage that would probably be better for them. Mm-hmm. And then, as we mentioned already, employees don't necessarily know what their benefits cover. The example I gave with CI, how most can't name the common conditions that would be covered by CI. And again, we gave them a list to pick from. It's not like we're asking them to remember off the top of their head. A lot of errors there. And that is a problem for the industry as a whole, because when you have an employee that has this product and doesn't actually understand what it covers and what it doesn't, sooner or later they're going to make a claim for a condition that's not covered. That claim is going to be denied correctly by the insurance company. But now that person's had a really negative customer experience. That product wasn't there when they thought it would be, and now they have a negative opinion of that insurance company. They probably have a worse opinion of the industry as a whole because that happened. So it has deeper ramifications than just their own understanding. This is about the perception of the industry that's coming into play here.
Mm-hmm. So it's really a bigger issue than just benefits, because there's so much more that goes into it. I'd be interested in understanding what other trends you see overall in the benefits business.
So the interesting thing when you're looking sort of at the rate of employers offering benefits and those penetration trends is that we've been in an extended period of economic growth since around the year 2010. GDP has been rising every year. We have the unemployment rate dropping. Overall, economically, we've been in a good place, and it's been getting better and better. In that kind of environment, what we would expect to see is more employers offering benefits because it gets harder to attract and retain employees. Actually, what we're seeing is the opposite of that. The overall percent of employers offering benefits has declined from about 88% in 2003 down to 81% now. And we're actually also seeing a slight decline in the average number of benefits offered. It's gone from an average of 8 benefits per company down to 7, which isn't a big difference, but it's a bit of a drop.
And I did see the research showed that life insurance as an option is now less likely to be offered than in the past, and things like disability insurance are increasing instead.
Right, yeah. So we're seeing the drops mainly, it does vary by benefit. Life insurance, medical, dental, and cancer insurance are the ones we're seeing the biggest drops in. We're actually seeing growth in products like vision and critical illness insurance. So those are, for vision, you're sort of seeing more employees asking for that product, and they know they're going to use it, so it's kind of an easy sell. For critical illness, that's a newer product that has been gaining traction in the market. It has more room to grow because it's less commonly offered right now. And we have seen a lot of carriers jumping into that market and showing more interest in selling that product. So there's a lot of factors coming into play there. Now, when you look at what's driving these trends, there's a few things to keep in mind. First of all, most of these changes are happening more at the smaller end of the market, and we always see more variability among small businesses. We have so much turnover in that market, hundreds of thousands of small businesses opening and closing every year. So it's not so much that companies are going to drop benefits, so much as companies are going to close their doors, and the new businesses that spring up to replace them might be more hesitant to bring in benefits in the first place. Mm-hmm. One of the other factors that is clearly playing a big role here is the rise in medical insurance premiums. A company might be in a really good place financially, might be looking to invest more in their benefits package, but if their health insurance premiums are going up so much from year to year, they could be swallowing that entire increased budget that the company was planning to spend plus some. So that's not leaving them with any additional money to bring in new products. Mm-hmm. And it's also not leaving them with a whole lot of time to think about bringing in new products. If your medical insurance premiums went up 8 or 10%, that entire meeting with your broker or advisor might be taken up figuring out what to do about that and what kind of plan design changes can we make to counteract that, as opposed to spending time talking about, should we bring in a voluntary product or should we make changes to other benefits. Mm-hmm. So that's a big factor that's pushing back on that tendency to companies might want to spend more, but they're spending more on medical. Finally, and this is a trend that we're a bit concerned about, we've been tracking over time which benefits are considered most important to employers for attraction and retention. What do they feel like they need to offer in order to attract and retain employees? And unfortunately, for a lot of the non-medical insurance benefits, we're actually seeing that importance decline in the eyes of employers. So they're less likely to say it's critical to offer something like life or disability coverage now compared to what they would say 10 years ago. And that's happening despite the improving economy. So that's something that we have a lot of concerns about.
And that leads me to the topic of advisors, because I would think advisors can help influence the customer experience or the employee experience. So as I understand it, based on our research, about 70% of companies work with an advisor. And actually, I think 79% of companies agree that their advisor really understands their needs. And we also know that companies who work with advisors are more likely to do best practice type work, benchmarking, et cetera, mm-hmm. things like that. So let me ask you about the role of advisors and what trends you see there.
So there was a perception for a long time within the industry that the advisor was really just sort of doing cost comparison and spreadsheeting for the employer. So they'd come in once a year, help them figure out the renewal rates, and then they would go away again. And in light of that perception, there's been a lot of speculation in recent years with the rise of online channels and more ways of selling direct to customers, whether the role of the advisor would change. Were they going to become less important to employers and would some employers sort of want to go around the advisor or be interested in purchasing coverage without that intermediary in place? Fortunately, our research shows that actually that's not the case for most employers. Like you mentioned, most employers feel like they're getting a lot of value from their advisor. We see about a quarter say that they feel like they're really only getting transactional support, but the other 75% feel like their advisor is helping them with their strategy, that they're providing really valuable insight and advice. So it seems like advisors really have seen these trends coming and have pivoted to playing more of a consultative role with employers. In terms of changing distribution, we do see some potential for employers having interest in working with carriers in different ways. So we see 31% of employers say that they feel like they would have the knowledge and expertise to obtain benefits without the help of an advisor. and about a quarter say that they would be interested in purchasing benefits directly from a carrier if given the opportunity. We see that a lot more among those that felt like they were getting only transactional support versus the ones that feel like they have a good relationship with their advisor. So there is definitely some potential for change, but it seems like overall, we're seeing for those advisors that are bringing real value to their clients, we don't expect them to be going anywhere anytime soon.
So it sounds like there are a lot of challenges and certainly things that LIMRA is going to be keeping an eye on with our research. So as you know, our idea or LIMRA's purpose is to provide actionable insights for our member companies. Is there anything out of the whole body of research that you do that you would want to share with our members?
Absolutely. So as you know, the benefits industry has a lot of moving parts. This isn't really one sale that they have to make, it's 3 sales. They have to convince the advisor to sell their products in the first place, then convince the employer to offer their products to employees, and finally actually convince the employees to enroll if they have any out-of-pocket costs. That's a 3rd sale that happens at the enrollment. So to compete effectively, insurance carriers really need to understand what's happening at all levels of that market. So a great insight from the employee perspective is when employees don't enroll, a lot of times what they'll say is that the product wasn't affordable. You know, they couldn't afford it, it cost too much. But when we drill down and really talk to them about it, we discovered that what they really mean isn't that they couldn't afford the benefit, they meant that they didn't think the benefit was worth the cost that it was being offered at. So that's important because that's a very different conversation to be having with them. This isn't about convincing them that they can give up their daily latte and afford to enroll in disability insurance. This is about convincing them of the value of this product in the first place and what they're getting for it and why it matters so much.
So the perceived value needs to be clearer.
Absolutely, and we know that employees, as I already discussed, employees' knowledge of these benefits is so low, and so carriers really need to be trying new strategies to get that message across in new ways.
That concludes today's edition of LIMRA Unplugged. Thanks to Kim for sharing her knowledge with us, and thanks to you for joining us.